President Biden campaigned on the promise of comprehensive immigration reform already in his first 2 weeks in office. He's pushed a major bill to Congress and signed 3 executive orders. I spoke to immigration attorney Esther Valdes Clayton about exactly what those orders mean. Esther, lots of big news this week. Thanks so much for joining me. I want to dive right into it. President Biden signed 3 immigration-related executive orders this week. I want you to walk us through all of them. The first one, as far as I understand it, could help reunite those children who were separated from their parents who got deported.
I, Alejandro Mayorkas,
Do solemnly swear.
do solemnly swear.
Tell me about that one.
President was awaiting the appointment for the Department of Homeland Security new director, Alejandro Mayorkas, to be able to lead a commission that would reunify these families. Over 5,000 families were separated at the border under the zero tolerance policy that was instituted by the Trump administration. Of those children, roughly 600 children remain separated from their presumptive parents. Again, those are the type of questions that we don't know. Who were the adults that brought them in? Were they parents? Were they relations? And a lot of these children are of such a small age that they can't give their parents a first name. They don't have an address. They don't have a location to find their parents. So that needs to be the priority here. What I would like to see happen is that they do an outreach that includes women to be able to locate the mothers, many of whom were forcibly separated from their own children for human trafficking purposes. And that seeks to exploit one of the very well-known loopholes in asylum law in the United States, that if you're accompanied by a child and you are an adult, you are a priority and you gain admission into the asylum system. That was well-known, that was exploited, and it led to countless victims. They really need to focus on that, focus on the mothers of these children, many of whom are also looking for their children.
Yes, President Biden definitely talked a lot about that on his campaign trail, and he's certainly going to have a lot of logistical hurdles to get through to make those reunifications actually happen. Now, the second order looks at migrants seeking asylum on the border. We saw so many news events last year about those migrant caravans. What could this order do?
Yes, the order also seeks review of the Migrant Protection Protocol, also known as the Remain in Mexico. Here in San Diego, what that means is that there are shanties and refugees living in tents in Tijuana. We've had a lot of rains right now. Imagine having traversed a third country like Mexico, only to be rebuffed at the border when you're trying to present an asylum claim. That's what Remain in Mexico did. For right now, the Biden administration, even though he had promised that he would promptly dismantle it, he's seeing logistical difficulties in terms of the health and human safety protocol that established border closures because of the COVID pandemic. That's going to be the biggest hurdle. The other hurdle is where to house approximately 60 and growing 60,000 people who are seeking admission into the United States for asylum purposes. The big question as an immigration attorney is, why aren't these cases being heard? Generally speaking, as an immigration attorney, we can vet which cases are valid under asylum claim, that they fall under 5 neat protected categories of persecution and torture on account of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, to name a few, and that it's perpetrated by your country of origin. Why can't that happen in a more expeditious manner? And why is it taking over close to 1 year for these people to be vetted, processed, and for approximately 20% of asylum claims we know that will be valid, those need to be prioritized. And that's how I would handle this Remain in Mexico, not completely dismantling it, but following the protocols and prioritizing cases so that the true refugees and asylum seekers aren't sitting around languishing in Tijuana. Something as an immigration attorney, and I'm sorry to ramble about this, the Wall Street Journal just published an article where they were arresting Mexican police officers who had killed over 10 Guatemalan migrants that were caravanning into the United States. That's the danger. That's the violence. That's what happens to migrants that are making this long haul journey because of a lot of disinformation that's being disseminated in Central America, that you can come to the United States if you're fleeing poverty and gang violence, and that's not under the law.
Right. A lot of immigration activists are hoping that the Biden administration can expedite many of those cases. Now, I want to go to the third and final executive order. As far as I understand it, the order would ask agencies to review their regulations, policies, and guidelines that have set up barriers to legal immigration. Tell me about this one. I heard one of the first things to go will be the public charge rule. What exactly does that mean?
The public charge rule is something that has commonly always been in existence in immigration law. When my family came here from Mexico, we had to prove that we had the financial capability to be able to maintain and support ourselves without relying on public or taxpayer assistance. So that has always been enshrined in immigration law.
Without any mental reservation.
What the Trump administration did was put in vigor in effect, and in effect blocked many lawful permanent residents from being able to naturalize if they were deemed to be a public charge. Part of the immigration process, when you lack the income funds, you have to get a sponsor. Those sponsors were also beholden to the law that if the person you sponsored to enter the United States did seek any kind of federal assistance program, excluding those for pregnant mothers and children, they would then have to repay that money. The Biden administration is now reviewing that, and in the review, possibly up to 9 million lawful permanent residents will be able to attain naturalization, whereas they had previously been quote unquote blocked because of this public charge.
Stay with us.